Good evening, dear colleagues, and welcome to the PMDPro Study Circle organized by Zafari Education Group. And this is the consecutive fourth day, and already we have finished 47 pages from the DPro guide, and the entire guidebook is 217-page guidebook. So I hope that we could finish it by the next week, and I would request you to tune every day at 7 p.m. Bangladesh Standard Time, and every day we study for 2 hours, having a 10 minutes break, means having 2 sessions every day. And I hope that we will go ahead with this pace, and I am positive that if we can keep up this pace of going ahead with the studies, we can sit with our DPro exam as early as possible, and we can score a very good mark in the exam. Now, let us start from this page. Page number 47, point number 2.1.5. So we are following the same method as we have discussed earlier, and the method is first I read the texts, then we can have a short discussion, and we will specially discuss the boxes and diagrams or figures if we see anything during our reading of the texts from the guidebook. Okay, let's start from point 2.1.5. To successfully move through the identification and definition phase, you will need a variety of documents and information. Some of those may include project concept or idea, terms of reference from a request for proposal, lessons learned from various similar projects, lessons learned from previous or similar projects, program theory of change, the inputs available will depend on the kind of project you are identifying and defining. For example, if you are responding to a request for proposal for an international NGO or donor as an implementing partner, you will likely have a terms of reference to guide you. The project will likely have been identified at a high level, requiring specific data from your side and further detailing the parameters of your part of the intervention. On the contrary, if you are the recipient of a grant project, you will need to identify and design the project from start to finish, including each and every project component. Likely, you will have already come up with a general idea at this point that requires further exploration and specification of details of the project. The processes will remain the same for all projects during this phase. However, the type of the project you are implementing will determine the level of detail and information you will need to establish for your project in this phase. Before going to the point 2.1.6, I'll discuss the yellow box, but before discussing yellow box, let me summarize this text. So in short, we read in the guidebook that the PMDPro, PM phase model means PMDPro project management phase model has 5 phases. And the phases are project identification and definition phase, setup phase, planning phase, project implementation phase, project closure phase. And each phase has a decision gate, a final, and the other decision is even in each gate. So, and we are discussing project identification and definition phase now. And in this phase, there are three small gates, means decision gates. The needs assessment decision gates, the project concept note gate, the project proposal gate. So if we want to pass through each gate, we have to stop and we have to check each micro level to go forward. For example, if the need assessment is done, and if the internal team is convinced that this need assessment is enough valuable and it has the validation to go forward, and if there is any external authority connected to this project or the organization, if that gives the green signal to the project team that the need assessment is okay, so the need project team can go ahead with a concept note. If you have any question, you can put the question in the chat box so I can check the chat and reply to your questions. Now we are discussing the yellow box. The yellow box is about concept note. You know, in development and humanitarian sector, we need to work with the project concept note many times, and we need to look at this at a foundational basis of a project. We are allowed to write project proposal, or we've been given the green signal if the concept note is okay. I'm sorry, I was not reading the text. A concept note is a high-level document outlining the idea of a project and can be used internally or externally. At this stage, you may have already submitted a concept note to internal stakeholders in your organization, or to a donor agency or INGO in response to an RFP. The concept note is a great tool to use to begin framing and defining your project during this phase. We talked about this, I think. We can go ahead with point number 2.1.6, process, definition of needs. The process of identifying and defining a project should begin with the project team collecting data and information that identifies community needs in the potential intervention area. The data you collect should not be limited only to examining the issues related to community needs. There are a lot of other factors that should be considered when you explore the needs of the community that will contribute to formulating the framework for your project. Some of these factors may be current services provided in the area, whether by the community itself or other organizations, stakeholders who may be involved in the project, community strengths and assets, national sector level goals, objectives, and strategies. One of the challenges when collecting data is that the process can be highly subjective. People, as individuals and as members of social and interest groups, can have radically different ideas about what should be defined as a need and what should not. As a result, the needs definition process in a single location can result in significantly different results depending on who is consulted and what approach is employed. As we already discussed in the first phase of the PM phase model, we have to conduct need assessment because need assessment establishes the foundation of going ahead with the project. If my need assessment is okay, I can write concept note. If my concept note is okay, I can go further with the project proposal. If my project proposal is okay, I can go to the government for authorization. If I got the authorization, then I start the project. So you see in the project process, project design, planning, implementation, everything is depending on how my need assessment is being conducted, how the need assessment has been formulated and presented to the donor or to the internal senior management team. In need assessment, I need to focus the current services, the stakeholders, the community strengths and assets. It can be the national sector level goals, objectives, strategies in alignment with the expected laws and policies set by the government and international organizations or UN agencies. And other international and national frameworks that we need to obey to ensure that human development is being done in line with those national and international policies and frameworks. So during needs identification, how MEAL can be a cross-cutting issue. We have already discussed that in the project management phase model diagram, the MEAL has been put vertically in the left side, and we say that MEAL should be ensured. MEAL should be a cross-cutting issue throughout all phases of the project. The MEAL team or focal point will work in close coordination with the project manager and team during this phase. Any data collection should include collaboration with your MEAL team or representatives. Collecting data. The data that you collect during this phase will not be limited to the needs and priorities of the targeted community or beneficiaries. There will be other information that you should obtain at this point in the project so that you have a more comprehensive understanding of the context. Some of that data might include legal and regulatory environment, social and cultural conditions and norms, infrastructure available and required, community strengths, weak opportunities and vision, biological and physical environment, organizational networks, successes and capacity. There are a multitude of ways in which you can gather these data. Keeping in mind that at this point, you probably don't have a whole lot of resources to work with. For example, you may not have a dedicated budget for implementing a fully fledged data collection effort, or you may not have a lot of human resources to dedicate to the data collection process. you have to keep these constraints in mind when you determine from which source and which method you will use to collect the data. Before the data collection process can begin, however, a plan should be developed that states the purpose of the data collection, the resources available for conducting the data collection, human resources required, the time frame available for conducting the data collection or needs assessment. Let's take for the example the Delta latrine building project at this point. The project is just an idea that will require more information and data to validate that the need exists and provide information to the project team that will help guide them in how they proceed with the development of the project. Table 4 provides a simple yet structured way of determining what information and data needs to be collected for the needs assessment. Time and resources are limited at this point in the project, so the data collection process should be as focused as possible and be cost and resource effective as well. Now there is a diagram of data collection, and let's look at this. So it has 5 columns. What we need to know means during data collection, before data collection, we need to have this plan. Who or where can we get that information from? What kind of human resources will be required? What kind of budget will be required? What kind of time frame will be required? So let's put the question one by one. What are the local associations, local government, and other actors? We need to know this. Now, how can we get the data, or where? Meeting with community association and cooperative. If we do this, we can get the data. And what kind of human resources we need to do this? Experienced field agent. And the budget for transport, lunch, official materials, 2 days of field visit. So we need to have this plan well ahead of the data collection. I think I would love to skip this diagram as excuse me, colleagues, I have a phone.